Da 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 da. Tradition. I want to talk about a tradition. I want to talk about a tradition in the Christian church. I want to talk about a tradition in the Christian church that I want to challenge. I want to talk about something going on in some circles of New Testament study, because New Testament study, there are many people who study the New Testament who argue that Israel has become the church. In her rejection of Jesus, the argument goes, Israel has lost her place as the people of God, and the church is the new Israel. If you walk away with one thing from what I'm going to say to you, it's this. Even though we have Gentile inclusion in what Jesus Christ has done, that does not entail Israel's exclusion. The warning to the nation is that if she rejects God's message, then the blessing may not come to her, but may go to Gentiles. Israel's story has an obstacle, her own rejecting heart. The question is whether that obstacle is permanent or not. Some may claim it is permanent. Israel has lost her place because she has turned her back on God and the promise of Messiah. Later texts in Luke answer this question, so the result should not be assumed. And so we turn to the text that suggests that Israel does have a future. The question is a natural one for Jews. Is this the time you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? Luke 1 and 2 express the hope vividly. What was debated in Judaism is whether the centrality of Israel would be positive or negative for Gentiles. Would it come with salvation or judgment for the nations? The disciples are not even thinking in mission terms here. Their question reflects a nationalistic concern for vindication, and nothing Jesus did or said in the 40 days he was with them after resurrection dissuaded them from this expectation. I can't tell you how important that is. Jesus spends 40 days with them. They're interacting back and forth. He's sharing Old Testament texts with them. He's taking them through an eschatology 101 class, and he is the professor. And as he does this, when it's all done, the time comes for a final examination. The one question they want to ask the prof is this the time you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? Now, Jesus doesn't react by pulling out his hair and getting my hairline, okay? What Jesus does is he says, that's the Father's business. He doesn't challenge the premise of the question. He says, in the meantime, you've been given a mission to do, so go do it. In the end, Israel will also be blessed. In our narrative sequence, this is a crucial text. It tells us what is to come was already disclosed. Whatever the expansion of the promise to Gentiles entails, it does not remove or redefine Israel's story. When Peter says that what is to come is revealed in, quote, the mouth of his holy prophets from of old, in Acts 3:21, he is saying God has revealed what he will do for Israel one day. You can still read all about it in the Hebrew Scripture. Nothing God said there is changed by what Jesus did or does. God can add detail to his program. He can develop it, but that does not take place at the expense of what he has already revealed and committed himself to do for Israel. For Luke Acts, Jesus' story is Israel's story, as well as a story that blesses the world. It anticipates a future time when Israel responds to Jesus and God restores the nations as the prophets promised. Israel and the nations one day will respond to God as one and be reconciled to one another. That is a big part of the ultimate story. This is where the hope of the land comes in. For when Jesus returns, it is to rule from Jerusalem. The times of the Gentiles will be over. Jesus, the glory of Israel, will bless the world in his presence. Israel and the world will be at peace because Gentile inclusion completes Israeli inclusion as promise becomes reality for both groups. Reconciliation will be achieved, as will shalom for all.